You ever have one of those sleep sessions where you can't remember anything when you wake up? I myself am having one of those mornings, or maybe evenings. I can't really tell as I've just awoken from what feels like I was hit by a truck, or maybe roofied. I feel well rested, but I'm in a cramped, confined space. I can feel the floor with my hands. It feels like wood. I raised my hands up as far as I could. I was able to reach the ceiling. It was definitely a confined space of some sorts, maybe a crate or a box. Why would I be in a box? Who would do something like this to me? Was this a prank gone wrong? My mind was racing with questions. That was, until I heard it. It was like the slight pitter-patter of something. I can't even see anything. It's too dark and my eyes can't seem to adjust to where I'm at. There's a slight feeling of something falling on my face. What could it be? Powder? Is it dust? All I'm able to seem to gather here is it's dark, I'm definitely in an enclosed space, and I'm only noticing it now, but it's hot. I'm beginning to feel claustrophobic. Taking a pause, I stop and I try to calm myself down. Deep breaths. As I try to get my breathing under control, that same sound arises again, more pitter-patter above me. I closed my eyes even though it was dark, and as I tried to concentrate, as I began to focus, I could hear the faint sound of music. It was soft. Orchestral, maybe? Something my grandmother would have listened to. There was something wrong about this soft, gentle tune. It had an ominous feeling to it. Kinda like the stuff you'd hear at funerals. Why would I be hearing this? I started to panic. Did someone kidnap me? Am I on the shit end of some elaborate prank? I felt my heart racing all the way up in my throat. Why would someone do this to me? Think. I'm not the most liked, but I certainly don't have any enemies who would go out of their way to do something like this to me. I was drawing a full blank and then it finally hit me. I've seen stuff about situations like this on the internet. There's no way this could be happening. I think I'm in the process of being buried. That music is for funerals. It's my funeral. Oh my god, I'm in a coffin, aren't I? I'm being buried alive. The thought alone left me shaken. I didn't know what to do. I started to thrash about against the 4 wooden walls confining me. My rapid breaths led me into a full-blown panic attack. I started beating on the lid of the box I was trapped in. Help! Help! Let me out! I'm not dead! It wasn't working. The sound of what I could assume was dirt being thrown upon me was getting lighter. I was running out of time fast. I wasn't sure what to do next. I started to fiddle through my pockets, hoping that maybe, just maybe, it was still there. As I fumbled through my left pocket, I felt it. The cool metal outlining of my lucky lighter. With no time to waste, I flicked it open and ignited it. As the flame illuminated my surroundings, it finally hit me. It's hopeless. I'm going to die down here for real. Just as despair started to consume me, I heard a sound that pulled me back to the reality of the situation. It was different. It was unique. It was nothing like the noise of the dirt being shoveled upon my pre-made grave, or the archaic music. It was a knock? I'm not one to say I was in the best state of mind, and I may have been a bit disoriented, but I'm fairly certain that it came from behind me. There it was again. I'm sure of it. It came from right behind my head. I don't know why I did it. I can't even tell you what compelled me to, but I knocked back. At first, there was nothing but silence. I knew it. I'm going crazy. But then, it happened. I had to be going crazy. I could have sworn I just heard 3 consecutive taps from behind me. Call it a needed distraction, ere be it a foolish decision, I decided to respond once more. Then suddenly, without warning, a loud crack echoed through the small enclosed space. A mass of dirt flew up at my left side. Another cracking sound, and then another. There had to be at least 4, if not 5. It was getting hard to count them and keep track of what was happening. The box I was in began to shake, so much so that it made me drop my lighter. Moments later, multiple sets of hands burst through the wooden barrier that stood between me and the moist, cold soil. They began to fasten their grip from the bottom of the box and from behind me as they firmly grasped me and began digging their jagged nails into me. I lost it. I freaked out. I don't know how I got here, and I don't know what's happening. All I know is I don't like it, and I want out of this hellish nightmare. Fight or flight set in, and seeing as I couldn't run, my only choice was to fight. I began to thrash around, kicking my feet as hard as I could at the coffin lid. I could feel scratches being carved into my flesh as I struggled to escape the many fingers. I felt the immovable force of these hands pulling me downward even further beneath the earth's surface. I felt the adrenaline start to rush through my veins as I flailed about. Dirt had gotten into my mouth and eyes. I fought back tears as I choked out the phrase, "Help me!" The smell of rot had started to breach my small area. I fought back hard to choke down a gag that was rising. The last thing I needed to do... The last thing I needed to do was be drenched in puke. Great. I felt another mighty tug as I sank even lower. The harder I fought back, the harder these hands pulled me down. It was all happening so fast, but I knew right then and there, I was being attacked by the living dead. Zombies were trying to pull me down farther into the bottom of the pits of hell. I freed my dominant wrist, and with all my might I punched through the ceiling of this death chamber. I felt the smashing of wood as my knuckles began to sting, followed by the sensation of crumbling dirt. I raised my free hand and began to wave it frantically. I had to let them know. I was still alive down here. Just as I began to think I was safe, the sensation of another hand breaking through the coffin floor and wrapping around my neck was felt. It started to choke me. My vision began to fade as I was being asphyxiated. I was starting to black out when I felt it. The unforgettable feeling of a warm, clammy hand embracing my palm. Suddenly the hands retracted back into the cold, moist depths beneath which they had appeared from. A few moments passed. I could see sunlight through the hole I had made in my struggles. The sound of panic was above me as they scrambled to remove the dirt and try to pry the lid open. In the blink of an eye, I was blinded by the warm rays of sun. I rubbed my eyes a few times to adjust to the sweet, sweet rays of vitamin D, and I looked around confused as a man began to help hoist me out of the ground. I frantically looked back at the spot where I had been laying. 8 holes all around me where I had been prematurely laid to rest. Soil lay scattered about the cushioned back side of the coffin. I had minor lacerations on my forearms, hand, and neck. A crowd of my closest friends and family stared in disbelief. After coughing up what seemed like buckets worth of dirt, I exclaimed frantically, "The hands! Don't let them get me!" The crowd looked what was a mix of shocked and perplexed. I asked, "Just what the heck is going on here?" My mother approached me teary-eyed. You were pronounced dead 2 days ago. It happened when your body went into shock after suffering an allergic reaction to something that you consumed on your dinner date Friday. It all started to come back to me that very moment. I was on a date with this woman I met online. We'd been talking for a few weeks and eventually decided to meet up. She had chosen this super expensive foreign place and ordered for both of us. She knew my allergies beforehand and promised to make sure I'd get something that wouldn't bother them. I remember taking a few bites and then needing to go to the restroom immediately after. I collapsed. Then I can only assume I blacked out. My mother responded, "Well, that would explain why your apartment was ransacked. It looked like a herd of wildebeest had been through there." It took a few seconds to hit me. "Oh no, the safe!" I shouted frantically. "Calm down, dear. Anything lost can be replaced. Well, except for you. And even that seems to be a working theory now." I placed my left hand to my forehead and sighed. "Mom, you don't get it. That bitch drugged me and robbed me, and what she took was way more valuable than any form of currency or collectible. She got my flash drive, and it had the recipe with..." And I stopped myself mid-sentence. My mother asked, confused, "Recipe for..." I quickly diverted the subject. "My recipe for triple chocolate chip muffins." She laughed and told me I was always such a comedian. My friends and family began to swarm me with a loving embrace and comments of how elated they were that I had survived my literal to me, metaphorical to them, brush with death. After about 20 to 30 minutes, the group dissipated. I walked over to the plot that I had been buried in and looked down. The holes. They were gone. It's like they were never there. No. It's just as I had feared. She did get my recipe, and she has my flash drive with all the information on how to recreate it. I had my mother give me a ride back to my apartment, and I began to pick up the pieces of my life literally and metaphorically again. Once I was acclimated and back to the normal grind of life, I searched for that dating profile I had met her on. I looked through everywhere. I even went to the restaurant I had died in and asked for a record of her being there. There was no trace of this woman anywhere. The restaurant's CCTV cameras happened to go down right before me and her arrived. Her profile has been wiped, her phone number unregistered. She trashed my apartment, attempted to kill me, and stole the very valuable recipe for an extremely dangerous substance and has vanished. She had to be some kind of spec ops. Secret Service? Black Ops? KGB even? I'll never know. And as for the substance, well, think about an hallucinogen, but on the next level. It makes your nightmares almost become reality. It penetrates the one thing you're scared of most in your brain and attempts to materialize it. I'm sure you can understand the ramifications this could have in a psychological warfare environment. I mean, just imagine. You could literally make your enemies face down their greatest fears, and possibly even scare them to death in the middle of having it happen. Why else would I be attacked by zombies at my own funeral, and then look for evidence that it happened, and there be nothing there at all? All we can do now is pray that it doesn't fall into even worse hands than hers. Well, dear viewers, it looks like you've survived to the end of the terrifying tale. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. If you did enjoy, maybe consider liking and subscribing, as there's always more spooky content just around the corner. And remember, my beloved viewers, you never know what goes bump in the night.